Welcome to the Save Par Golf Podcast, where two average golfers talk about golf and things. I'm your host, Eric.
I'm here, but I'm messing with things.
We are currently on episode 161. We have two very special guests today. We have the CEO, Mercedes, and the COO, Thomas, with Par365, located in Roseville, Minnesota. Immerse yourself in a world in which music meets the precision of golf, creating an unforgettable fusion of rhythm, swing, and soul. Make sure to give them a follow on Instagram and stop by if you're in the area. Their handle is at Par365 Golf. Mercedes, Thomas, thanks so much for allowing us to use your space and have you on the podcast.
That was awesome. We gotta get you on the commercial. That was good, man.
Forgot how to read.
I kind of got souped up a little bit, but it's been weeks. But for those of you listening, we are at Par365. Like I mentioned, it's a simulator restaurant located in the Twin Cities. I live downtown Minneapolis, and it's 7 to 10 minutes away, so it's a great spot. Let's just get right into it. What inspired you to start Par365?
Yeah. No, I'll jump in on that one. This little thing that we all know called the pandemic.
Yep.
So, I mean, before that, neither of us really golfed or thought about golf one way or another. The pandemic hit. We were all looking for that outdoor space, a way to connect, something to do. And actually, one of my neighbors was like, hey, let's go to the driving range. And from there, the rest is really history. Like, I really fell in love with the sport. I had a chance to connect with my friends and just experience golf in a way that I didn't think that's what golf was.
Sure.
And I think a lot of that planted the seeds to the culmination of what Par365 is. It's really just an experience of what it was like for us to be introduced to golf and what we saw in golfing that was so much different than what we were seeing on kind of the mainstream or on TV or, you know, the PGA or layup or whatever it was at the time. It was really our own experience. And I think those are the seeds that really made the idea of what Par365 is, what it represents, what we're trying to do in the space and the community that we're trying to create.
Well said. We talked before we hopped on here. You just celebrated your 1-year anniversary here.
Yesterday.
So congratulations. Very exciting. We've been here a few times. Great spot. Did you have any experience in the golf space or owning a business previously?
We did not. Thomas has been in corporate America since he graduated over a couple decades ago, and I am.
Damn.
Right. We'll save that for another time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been practicing law for 20 years this year, so we've got experience with business, but aside from my tiny percentage of my law practice, we are not business owners. So this was our first foray into entrepreneurship.
I think that's so impressive. I think the hardest part of starting a business is actually just taking that leap. And the fact that you were able to do that is incredible because it can be you clock in a 9-to-5 job and clock out and just enjoy your life, right? But you're kind of jumping all in on something, especially something new for you. What has been some of the challenges? Because I know running a business with just on a day-to-day, plus you have the food, everything. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
I'd say, for a long time, the big challenge was getting to open in the doors. There's so many steps that you have to take. And we would never have gotten there without mentorship, support from the community, support from the city, people who were just kind of willing to give freely their advice and their time to get us here, because we were really starting from just an idea.
Sure.
And so we thought we did something when we opened, and then it was like, now you have to run it.
Yeah.
I was opening the doors is one thing, and then actually running it is.
I would say the scariest part about starting a business is the first step. The hardest part about running a business is running a business. So,
well said.
Do you guys know what was here before you guys were? Because the building seems almost like perfectly laid out for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really it was like a kind of a warehouse.
Okay.
Also, it's actually a truck depot center.
Okay.
So,
It's like an office up front,
yeah.
Okay.
small office, and then the back was just like.
Yeah, there was a big transformer right in the middle, so they were using it for truck dispatch and things like that, and
Okay.
kind of keeping it there. And then before that, it was actually the furniture supply place, the blinds, Hunter Douglas.
Okay.
So a lot of it, because it had been here so long, they had began to like just take stuff off. So that really helped us in terms of demolition.
Sure.
But a lot of the design and a lot of what you see is really like us thinking very carefully about where to place stuff. So I'm glad it feels like it was like that, but a lot of that really intentional.
Well, and it's like, you walk in and obviously your guys' entryway, you've got all the art and everything. And as, an artist, or not really an artist, I'm a photographer, seeing that just is kind of, super fun. And then you walk through and you got, okay, cool bar. And then it's sim. And then we're in one of the bigger sims. It just feels like it was like
Meant to
dropped
be.
in just
Yeah.
perfect, right? Like it just flows. There's nothing like clunky in the way. And
Yeah, it's a great layout.
yeah, it's almost like a simulator place was here before, and then you guys just took it over.
Yeah, no, there were a lot of
Probably, right?
late
been
night
better.
calls with our architect,
Sure, sure.
and last minute changes with our construction company. Dealing with what we can't actually move this. Okay,
Right. Probably like up to code. There's things with code and all that other stuff.
yeah,
No, we anything. I like to joke that anything that could have went wrong probably went wrong in the process, and I think that's part of the learning and that's part of the challenges. Like as many kind of milestones that we've hit along the way of setting this up, like each one is just as big as the one before it.
Sure.
And as soon as you pass that, like there's almost not time to celebrate. Like one of the things we had a youth group in here today that we were talking about like entrepreneurship and mentoring and things like that. Something that's really important to our brand and our business.
Mm-hmm.
And I had mentioned that we changed the liquor code, and then I had mentioned it in like a story, and they were like, "You changed the law?" I was like, "Yeah, that was like 3 years ago though." But now, so it's like all these things come up, and there's all these great moments and milestones and ways that we've been able to work together and overcome challenges. But like we are far from like, hey, let's put up the flag and shoot the fireworks. It's been a year. It's been a year and we got a lot of work to do.
Sure. Yeah. There was so many like discussions that started with him asking me a question and my response is, why would I know that?
Yeah, expecting the answer. Gotcha. I was gonna say, like,
I've been at my job 7 years, and I'm the one in charge. I still do that. They're like, do you know like what? I'm like, I've never even seen that before, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like,
I didn't know that existed.
I'm like, until you brought it up in my email, I have no idea what that is.
Welcome to business.
So to take a step back, so you kind of picked up the golf game during the pandemic. Most people would say, or mentors would say, come up with a business plan, right, or business model, kind of write it up, type it up, however you want to do that, and then move forward. How long did you guys do that? And if you did, how long did that take from like start to finish before you actually opened the doors?
We did have a business plan.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd say whoever is mentors, like you're absolutely right. Like if you are to do anything from big in business or small in business, you better have a plan, especially if you just don't have like free money trees sitting around.
Sure.
Like you have to have a plan, not only that says like what you're trying to do, what the concept is, but really from a revenue standpoint, how you're going to win, how you're going to succeed. Because without that, you really can't get started. A lot of what we did to do this was through, federal funding and SBA loans and mortgages and all these other things. And if we don't have like a well thought out, like, here are our challenges, here's how we're going to win, here's how we're going to staff, like down to like all the research that we do, you really can't execute it. Like you really have to be put together. And even in being put together, that doesn't guarantee your way.
Right. Because we were making a lot of assumptions. Which
why would I know this?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, which changes with the market. It changes with when we started, we were kind of unique to this area and to this space, and the number of simulators that have popped up in the years since have been it's quadrupled.
Yeah, at least
if not more.
Yeah.
Between our idea and starting the whole process to opening, interest rates. Quadruple.
That's a thing. That's a thing.
So many things, like variables that you don't really think about as a non-business owner.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. So yeah, like ideally, are you thinking like it took like maybe a year, 6 months
from the idea, which started early January of 2022, and then we opened it at the end of 2023. So it took almost 2 years.
About a year and a half.
Yeah, and I'd say like one of the reasons we jumped into it is because as we talked about it, it was one of those ideas we couldn't let go. Like we kept talking about it, we kept revisiting it, it kept growing. It was one of those things where in 30 years, if we didn't do it, we
You
would
have some
always wonder
regrets.
like what if, right? So I think that gave us that courage to take that first step. And then both with our kind of experience in being in these Fortune 500 companies, being in corporate, like we had that business plan together like in a month, right? So at least the outline of it, and we filled it out as we went. Sure, we were ready to go with that part. We probably would have opened that year, but then we couldn't find a location. So we had found a location. We were kind of running out of time. We wanted to hit the fall to make sure that we could maximize the winter time.
Yep.
And for the life of us, we just could not agree with the landlord and leasing and everything else. So after we missed that, we spent that next year just trying to find a location. And that's when we found this location going into the summer, starting the construction and everything else. So I'd say it was about a 2 year process, just trying to find location before we were able to open. And now we're coming up on our first year.
It'd be pretty tough, like having this idea and wanting to just open the door, but not even able to have a
Excruciating.
I think we needed the time.
sure.
We needed the time because I mean it wasn't until that summer that we actually got the liquor code changed, and and I think if we had tried to push it to get into that spot we were originally negotiating for, um, this space is much better.
Sure.
It's so much better.
I think ideas mature over time as well.
Absolutely.
So like if you had opened this and you're like, hey, I have this idea and we're gonna do it in 6 months. I don't know if it would be as well put together,
It absolutely would.
right? Like be falling off the seams, it'd be all crooked. Especially like if you put me in charge, everything would just be a little off center.
By the way,
Why is the golf ball rolling a little bit?
Is it? Yeah, shit. But no, it's like I think we had for like this idea, right? It's like Derek brought it up to me, and I'm like, that's stupid. Like that's real dumb. And now it's like every Tuesday, I have something to do now, and then throughout the week I have something to do. But it takes time to mature, bring these ideas to life, and I think the ideas that are worth having are the ones that you sit down and go, okay, is this good or bad? Right? Because now you have an actual thought process, you're determined, and you have, an emotional connection to it to an extent. Because, to an extent, I don't know if you guys have kids, this is your kid,
yeah,
for everything, right? Like this is your baby. And now you're attached to that versus, wow, this sucks after 6 months. We can just shut it down.
yeah, and I think there's definitely a fine balance because what did happen is as you're trying to do that, if you have an idea, the longer you wait, the longer you go, what? Or the longer you say like, oh, it's a little crooked, or like, oh, I don't know, is this should we run those numbers again? Should we do this again? So there's a fine balance. I think in our situation, to Mercedes' point, everything happened exactly on the time it should have happened.
Sure.
But if it would have happened earlier, we would have still had stuff that we were trying to recover from. Like I said, even with the extra time that we had, construction, design, all those things, like anything that you can name that would have went wrong, it went wrong, but you just figured it out. And I think that's what I would tell people is like, it's never gonna be perfect. Like sometimes you just gotta go with what you have and you'll fix the ship as you go.
I think another important part, at least from what I'm understanding, is that you're both on the same team and you're wanting to do it together, where you have one person that's all in, and then you have another person that's like, yeah, I don't know, and I think that makes a huge difference being a team, doing this, diving in on something that's it's a big commitment.
Yeah, I'd say with this business, the pro is that we're married, we're life partners, we do everything together. The con is we're married, we're life partners, we do everything together. So
Like he's like, we're gonna do this podcast. They want to come by at 8. You think you can make it? I'm like, who is putting our children to bed?
well, we appreciate
Yeah, we appreciate the time. No, but yeah, exactly. We know that time is everything, and we really do appreciate that. So is there anything that maybe we missed as far as the building or getting the business started? Because I know I definitely want to talk about the facility itself and kind of what like the simulators. Is there anything that we might have missed that you want to touch base on?
not on that part, right?
Um,
I'd like to talk just more about like our vision and
Yes, absolutely.
mission, all that
do
good
we
stuff.
want to name check some of the organizations that were super helpful?
Feel free to.
Absolutely not.
Minnesota Black
just
Chamber of
kidding.
Commerce,
Just kidding. Do it, please.
NBC.
Yeah, I would say so. A big part of the construction process, and Mercedes alluded this too, is when you're doing something this big and this visionary and this like just out of the scope of what our expertise is. You need partners, you need supporters, you need community partners. Some of our biggest partners were NDC, Neighborhood Development Center. They were with us from the beginning, coaches along the way. They kicked in on some of the loan money in terms of putting it together. MCCD, Metro Consortium, community developers also were a big help, and they help funded. The city of Roseville has been great partners in terms of A, changing that liquor code that we talked about,
Yep.
and B, also kicking in on some of the loans and support and some of the advice and kind of the construction period. Sunrise Bank is our main lender, a local bank that we work with kind of from the start, that really helped us navigate through some of the intricacies of getting money through the SBA process and things to watch out for, and kind of being the face of how you get business done, how you get lending done. When we have questions, we can go to them with it. It's not like this big faceless bank.
Sure.
We have a banker. We know our banker.
And I would even add, like, our organization, your former organization, I work with Frederickson and Byron, and they were kind of our earliest supporters in terms of, providing that legal support for us to get started, and then also, coming out and hosting event after event after event. And the same thing, every week there's somebody out here from Target who knows someone from Target, who knows Thomas from Target.
And the chambers,
supporters.
the chambers have been a huge part of it.
The Twin Cities North
Twin
Chamber,
Cities North,
Black Chamber.
It's amazing to see the community, though, and that's kind of what it's all about. Right? We're obviously locals as well, and we think it's so important. Is that something? Did you do a lot of reaching out? Because, like, for me, like, I would have never even thought of some of these things.
So part of it is that I was involved in the chambers because I served on the board of the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. And
Yep.
so I was aware of those resources. And so as we started, down this path, it really was in reaching out to my contacts at the chamber and the entrepreneurs that I've met through that process that really kind of, they know everything. They've been through it. And so connection after connection after connection really helped us to build that foundation.
Yeah, and I'd say build a lot of confidence. I think 10 years ago, if I would have came with this idea, Mercedes in her field, being in the legal field, being in the finance field is extremely risk averse. But I think being a part of that council and seeing other people do it and how they work through things, I think gave her the confidence to be like, sure, we can do this. Sure, we can change these codes. Sure, we can overcome these hurdles. And yes, we do have a network for it. So that was a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So speaking of the vision,
I think another
go ahead,
thing
sir.
that is important when starting a business that we haven't touched on is the attitude, right? Like it's always, yes, we can. Yes, that's a good idea. Without a good attitude, you're not going to get very far in this, right? Like if Thomas is the super positive one and you're like, no, right? Then you're but like,
You gotta flip that.
but like, you know what I mean? Though it's like, oh, no, we can't do that. And then the other one's like, what do you mean we can't? You're not getting anywhere, right? You need a good attitude, but as Derek said, you need a good team.
Yeah.
But
And persistence. A lot of the attitude, because to Mercedes' point, so sometimes I do play like the pessimist or do play like devil's advocate and try to challenge and say like, will that really work? Can we really do that? Do we have the resources for it? But I think a lot of it is that mentality of persistence. Like we will do this, we will win, we will be successful, and like
to
no
an
matter what comes
extent,
up.
it is important to be like, hey, can we do that? Should we do that? Because otherwise,
It's a balance.
if you're just saying yes to everything, you might as well just throw it away,
Yeah,
Right.
right? Because
absolutely.
then it's like, oh, yes, we can make that even bigger. And then, you look at it and you're like, wow, that was a waste of money,
Yep.
you
Yeah.
know?
Just because everyone said, yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even like, with a business like ours, and with just us running it, like time, you know, there are so many demands on our time. You have to say no.
Mhm.
You have to say no to opportunities. You have to say no to people. And you really have to have that focus on what is it that we're trying to do? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? And and build out from there, because those opportunities and those people will take everything you have in terms of time and resources.
I can imagine. So vision. We want to talk about the vision.
Absolutely.
Kind of piggyback that as well. What's your vision in the next 3 to 5 years, or where would you like to see Par365?
What did you say?
So a lot of this for me is wrapped up in like the why we did this. And Mercedes alluded to this a little bit earlier too. If we wanted to just like make as much money, and we kind of said this too, like the corporate way is the way to go. Once you're in, you kind of punch the clock, you get the paycheck, the whole deal. But really, what we wanted to do is we saw an opportunity to grow community in a way that it hadn't been grown before. So a lot of it revolves around this idea of taking golf as the vehicle and then using that to how can you provide, how can you make it more accessible, more approachable, more affordable? That's part of our mission. And then the vision to that is how can you make spaces and communities feel like people belong, that they can be authentic and they can be creative, right? So for me, I kind of put that in the forefront. That's the drive that we're trying to do, win, lose, or draw. That's what we want to deliver to the world. That's the value we want to bring to people. And it just so happens that it's through golf, it's through music, it's through this space, it's through this vibe, right?
Sure.
Now, when you talk about like from business standpoint, like, our dream is to like build this, expand it, take it to the different corners of the world, right? Like I think when we looked nationally, internationally, we didn't see anyone doing golf and doing golf simulators and doing indoor golf like how we were doing it. And, of course, like that's a change. I'm sure you're seeing everything exploding, but I still think there's a uniqueness and authenticity to what we're doing that's going to make it bigger than, people ever expected it to be.
Sure. It kind of
Right.
sets yourself apart from some of the other golf
Absolutely.
facilities or simulators.
Absolutely. And it also begins our hope is that it begins to speak to people who aren't just golfers, didn't just grow up golfing. It begins to inspire this curiosity. And I think the cool thing about golf is once you get in it, it's something for everyone. Like there is literally everyone who's ever done anything kind of cross paths with golf, if they're exposed and if they're able to like make that connection. So to me, that's like that 5 year, 3 year vision. Like, how can we grow that? How can we continue to push that and push that into the world? When it comes to the business, like in 3 to 5 years, I'd love to build a flagship. As you can imagine, as we think about the experience, because it's really about, I see golf as a sport and activity. What we're trying to do is bring a different experience to it. As we develop that experience and as we had this idea and concept, obviously we had multiple different ideas with how we can make it bigger, how we can make it better, how we can bring in more experiences. But the more ideas you add on a business like this, the more dollar signs, right? So what we're really trying to do in this space is perfect the concept, perfect the product, perfect the experience, and then show people like, yes, it can be successful. Yes, we can run 365 days a year. Yes, we can still do the cool things in the summer when everyone's out golfing. Like, yes, we can do all this. And by the way, now that we've shown you we can do it with this, imagine if we had all these other features. Imagine if we had all this space. Imagine if we had a bigger kitchen. Imagine if we were in the heart of cities and downtowns all across the United States. And to me, that's the growth plan. Like we'll only be able to do so much in this location just because of the size and how big the idea is. But if we can just show that glimmer of, yes, this is an idea that's really cool, that's what gives us the confidence and the hope and the vision to grow.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome.
All right.
Did you want to hint on anything on it?
No, I've been kind of focusing on how this is looking, to be honest,
Okay.
because it's just been a while since we've done just a strictly audio one.
Oh, sure.
That I'm a little paranoid about. This is gonna like,
Is it picking up? Then?
yeah. So
Oh,
I'm
sure.
just making sure that it does transfer properly.
Gotcha.
Just because I hate to waste your guys' time and be like,
Sorry,
fucked up.
yeah,
Sorry.
next time.
It's going though. I'm more focused on making sure that this is picking up everybody clearly. And
So we had mentioned my wife's kind of getting into the game of golf. You said that the space itself, it does have a different vibe to it, at least in my opinion,
Absolutely.
from some of the other simulator facilities that I've been to. So I will say it does have a very welcoming presence to it, which I think that's kind of the main goal.
Absolutely.
Because golf in general is again, it can be kind of a stuffy sport. I think golf and right now where it's in a good space, right? They got the fashion, the shoes, all this stuff is expanding big time. And I think it's really important to, like you said, some of the football players, the basketball players, people that aren't familiar with golf, it is actually a really cool sport to play. And you don't have to wear tucked in polo with your slacks or
You don't have to
whatever.
play your work clothes to play.
Exactly. You can play however with whatever you're wearing. So I think it is a very, very cool spot. What are some of the things that you're trying to do as far as like events? Because I know Super Bowl is obviously coming up. Are you doing anything? I think you have a two-person Pebble Beach event coming up too.
Yeah.
So if you want to
Yeah.
maybe touch base on that.
Yeah. So I'll touch base on that. So we partner with It's a local company called Fairway.
Good.
And they actually have this app that's really cool. And it's kind of like take golf leagues meets fantasy golf, fantasy football or fantasy golf. So what they do is they pair these teams up, and it's across simulated across the state. And then you get to pick like a professional golfer who's on like the Pebble Beach. And one thing that you'll find out about me because I just started golfing, I don't know anything about like actual professional golf.
Who the golfers
So
are?
yeah. So like I will butcher this to death.
No, that's
But
okay. Yeah.
they pair you with a professional golfer and you get points. So you get points. There's a pot. They came in here, and if you haven't heard of these guys, they're super down to earth. Like I think a lot of them live either in Roseville or around Roseville. And they just pitched this idea, and I thought it was just a perfect fit.
Sure.
So we've been kind of collaborating on our kind of advertising, and email distribution to really pump that out. But yeah, definitely check out the app. It's called I believe it's Fairway Golf. And just a fabulous idea and program that they continue to grow. And they're tech guys as well, so they're looking at a lot of the diagnostics. We had just great conversations about like what they've seen work in Sims versus not work in Sims. And like I said, they're very down to earth. So
Yeah. And I would say, because we are an event center, like we're sometimes looking out for events. I know someone's booking something for a Super Bowl, but we do have our own events, and those will kind of ramp up as we get into the warmer months because that's how we'll repurpose the space.
Yep.
So anyone who's interested, definitely call us if you want to book an event, and follow us if you would like to be the first to know when we're hosting something. We also have like a newsletter as well where we'll put those announcements in.
Okay. Yeah, you'd mentioned the social media. Has it been, I guess, how important has it been for you guys? Has it been, because I know Instagram can be a very powerful tool, TikTok, all those social media platforms. Are you getting a lot of traction on the local side of things, or is it still kind of because you're still fairly new?
I think we're still fairly new. We certainly see people who come in because they saw us on Instagram.
You're very active on the Instagram, which is a huge help.
Right. And we get, a lot of, some local folks who come in and try it out and they post about us, and then we'll get some folks coming in for that. So yeah, it's definitely a part of our brand strategy.
yeah, definitely part of our brand strategy, definitely part of our marketing strategy. So we try to look at all these things all together of like how do we really drive traffic? How do we let people, especially in a local market in Roseville and St. Anthony, know that we're here? It's still far too many people were like, oh, there's a golf simulator in Roseville? Like I had no idea, right? So we're trying to like get ahead of that. So some of the strategy is in social media, some of it is just like Google Analytics and driving ads. Some of it is local paperwork. Some of it is just being at the golf course, handing out flyers. Like we are kind of trying to execute anything we can to just raise awareness and let people know that we're here, let people know what we're doing, and tell people our story.
Thomas, you'd mentioned earlier, and I want you to kind of explain a little bit, but some people are just against simulators, right? They think it's kind of a stupid thing. I disagree, but you made a really good point. Can you kind of just talk about this, like not the situation, but like what a sim is in your definition?
Absolutely. It's very easy to think in this age of high technology that the simulator should be exactly like the golf course. Everything that happens on a golf course should happen in the simulator. My drive should go exactly where they go. My putt should look exactly like they do. And truth be told, it's just two different experiences. And I think the sooner you can just like kind of let go of what happens on the golf course and immerse yourself in the simulator and what they have to offer and the atmosphere and your connections and your friends, the sooner you'll have fun. And once you start having fun with it, then what you begin to see is like, oh man, like this does kind of translate. This is stuff that I'm working on. Like you'll never be able to emulate, like no matter how good your tracking system is or club speed or spin rate, you can never really emulate indoors. And TJO may differ, but for most places, you can't emulate grass and turf and dirt. So that's always going to affect all these things. But once you get past that, you can really find an enjoyable experience and you'll start to learn things that'll translate to your game outside and you don't even know it.
Sure.
And I think that's where it really becomes special. And it becomes a way to have both that summer experience and that winter experience.
So if Dom Dom hits a hole in one here in the simulator,
I was about to ask if the hole in ones count on the sim.
And does he have to buy a round of drinks for everybody?
So we actually had one hole in one, and somehow, it was a very good golfer. Somehow he convinced us that we should buy him a drink. So
That's how I think it should be, right? But
I think that goes back to us not being as familiar in the golf world. So we were like, all right, well, the customer's always right, I guess. But yeah. So it didn't turn out that way, but I think we will have to institute that.
that'd be kind of cool. Like a hole in one wall of fame.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna have a plaque up. I think this guy owns like a plaque company, so I think he's working on his own plaque to
Okay,
put up
look at
in
him.
place. So
That's pretty cool though. I always say, I'm like, you know what? I still think it counts. I'm gonna count it.
No,
I'll put the asterisk
I
next to
wouldn't
it
even
in
do
a
that.
simulator.
You know, like it goes back to what Thomas was saying. You can't replicate the grass, the dirt, but you also can't replicate the wind, the sun, all these other things. So to me, it takes like the novelty out of the hole in one, because it's like, you don't have trees or water around you.
But if we're playing for money, I mean that counts.
No.
and I will say,
I mean,
like, of all the time we've been open and all the millions of swings that people have already taken, like we haven't seen that. It
Mhm.
is still kind of special. It's like it all comes down to that probability, right? Like
Yeah.
it is kind of like special to like all the simulated land that there is for you to hit it the first time it goes in the hole. Like I got to give people props for that. Like
Sure.
that'll probably never happen again for that person.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I would say in terms of the experience, like if you step away from the folks who are kind of concerned that they can't completely replicate the golf course, for those people who are, maybe they like to golf, maybe they just think it's a fun thing to do. Um, Par365 is a place where you can come and you can play and it's time bound, right? You can play for 30 minutes, you can play for an hour, you can play for 2 hours. If that's all you have, because you have children at home, because you have work to do, you don't have to worry about being behind somebody who's really very slow.
Think about that, and I'm like literally that's probably the biggest issue with golf is the pace of play. Besides probably the price, but pace of play. So yeah, you can just grip and rip and hit as many balls as you want.
Yeah, exactly. It's a completely different conversation with your family, and you're like, I'm going to golf at par. I have a 10 o'clock tea time. Okay, you will be back at noon.
Yeah,
Well, it's dark out, right? That's the other thing. Like a lot of times, I remember when we were first, when I was first golfing, and I'd be like, I have to go now because the sun's going down. And Mercedes was like, well, we have all this stuff that we have to do. You're going to push that. Now it's like you can put the kids down, get everything done. And then when it's that time of like, all right, everything's done, it's nighttime, you can still come and hang with your buddies. And a lot of what brought us to golf and a lot of what keeps us at golf is that camaraderie of the friendships and the peers that we've bought. So that's like a big part of it for us.
yeah. That's well said. Another thing too, going back to people that are just getting into the game. I mean, how many times? I mean, we show up to a tea time at 8 a.m. and you have four groups staring behind you, and now you're already like your brain's already in a fog because you have this pressure with four other people staring at you while you're hitting, or something like this. Is like the stress and the anxiety, all those like thoughts are kind of go away.
Or if you're just having a crummy time, you can just leave. I feel like a lot of times, like when me and Mercedes play, there's times where she's like, I'm not hitting the ball well. It's too hot outside. It's been about an hour and a half. I really just want this to end. And you're on hole like 8 way out somewhere. And you're like, oh, how are we going to do this? And we already paid to be here. Whereas now it's like, if you need to wrap it up, you just wrap it up. Like, come back the next day.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of pros to it. That's for sure. Is there anything else you wanted to add on to that?
No, I'd still rather play outside
I mean,
Don't get me wrong.
in a heartbeat.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think that is for most golfers, for me, what brought me to the game.
I
Like,
watched a dude playing hockey skates today.
yeah, I saw that. I saw that. Yeah, that was kind of amazing. But don't get me wrong. For me, I don't think, however good technology gets or whatever else, I don't think it'll ever replace the game.
Mhm.
But I think it can be just an excellent complement that a lot of people who are purists, that
I think it's a,
missing.
I think it's a nice tool, right? Like, we were talking earlier, some places that do simulators are there to only get better.
Mhm.
So that's a great tool. We can't go outside play right now. One, it's dark, but two, it's cold
yeah,
and it's snow and the grounds are frozen. But, like you said, you could come in here with your buddies if you want to work on stuff, boom. You could do that and not have the group behind you breathing down your neck. I think that's something that people kind of lose in translation with simulators is it's a simulation. You can use it in any way you want to. I think it's a great tool for golf.
I think the advantage in Minnesota, like I said, we're so limited with our golf outside. So, and even in the summers, it gets really hot, gets humid. So for people that Don't like the sticky hot weather.
Well, I'm not a morning person.
Well,
So like I always plan it's sticky and hot because I'm like teeing up at noon.
yeah.
Right.
Because I'm not waking up at 8 a.m. to play golf.
I think the vision we have around it still is more expansive than that. Like I think about like when you're going out to entertainment or when you're going out to have like a date night or when you're going out to like we got to get a guy's time in here. We didn't get a chance to golf. Like golf is like for a lot of people going to be that number one,
Mhm.
but this can be a great number two, a great compliment
Mhm.
where it's like it is really about just connecting with people.
Sure.
And this is kind of that compliment to that because sometimes you can work on your game here, but sometimes it really is about. And I think that's why we went strong into what is the vibe, what is the music, what's the decor, how do you relax with friends,
Mhm.
colleagues, and wives and girlfriends, like how do you have that space that kind of is that catch-all that becomes in the repertoire? I don't ever think that Sims will be like a replacement for that or like we do this instead of.
Sure.
But like when we can't or when we want something different or we want like a different experience instead of just going out and eating or just going out to the bar, you can kind of have a couple snacks. You can have that activity. You can get up and move around. You can make it more of an experience. I think that's the part that I think sometimes golf is missing for non-golfers.
Yeah.
It's too much activity. It's not enough experience.
I like that. Well said. You have golf lessons here.
Absolutely.
Golf lessons. You have golf leagues.
Yep.
What weekday? Or is it every day, or what are you offering for?
Yeah, so for lessons, we do that by booking. So you call in or go to the website and we can find times and book that. We do have a full training bay. So it has, slow motion cameras where you can see your full swing, both face on and down the line. It has pressure sensors under it so you can see where you're moving your pressure. You can compare your swing to several pros that are in the system. You can draw on it. Our golf pro is very adaptive using the system as well as giving like kind of just small pointers to kind of help your swing. So I think you can train here as well as you can train at any indoor facility. And we have, one of the coolest coaches, in Scott Anderson. I'm definitely going to forget the course that he comes from, but he's been a golf pro at several courses. And then on the golf leagues, we do them basically. We've done fall league, which we concluded, and we do winter league. So our winter leagues are on Wednesday and Thursday. We have 12 teams in each, and we'll continue to look to grow kind of league play. We might do a floating league if there's enough demand, and hopefully, if we can get like a nighttime kind of like fun summer league, we'll keep it going. So that's all stuff that we evaluate as we go.
You guys gonna do anything for a Valentine's Day date night?
Valentine's Day is on Friday, so I think we're just starting to talk about it. I think last year we did like a wine special to try to get people out. I
The
think Friday
experience, right?
Valentine's Day is tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be a tough one to contest with, but we'll definitely have like follow our Instagram. We'll definitely put a promotion out for that and try to get some people in the door and try to get them to try something new.
Absolutely. Was there anything you want to touch on? Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, we can, we are happy to host folks for Galentine's Day. If that's something that
There
you're
we go.
interested in too,
What is Valentine's Day?
it's Valentine's Day without the drama.
I like it.
So it's Friday. Just a Friday.
Just a
then.
Friday.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm the single one. I don't have. Yeah. So for me, it's just like when he said it's on a Friday, I'm like,
So Valentine's Day is like the
No,
idea of like you hang out with your guys or your girls, right? Is that the kind of
Yeah. It's like Valentine's Day without the pressure of a date. It's just a day to hang out with your friends.
yeah, I'm the single friend.
so there you go.
Yeah.
No, seriously, like I would just be alone.
Meet somebody here.
I meet a group of dudes.
Uh,
Well, like Derek, married. Other buddy, married, has just had a kid. Brad, married, on kid number 2. And then I'm just like, hi guys. Like, I'm just here.
that's
I'll play by myself. I don't care.
Get a little older, and that's just what happens. But
If you guys want to feel real old, my high school reunion just got posted on Facebook.
what do you got?
10 years.
Oh man,
I'm not even saying mine.
10 years.
I'm
They just
coming
picked a spot.
I'm almost at the 20-year mark.
Damn.
Babies.
Yeah,
Don't feel like it, but
that's not.
we really appreciate you guys coming on and learning your story. And anything we can do to help support, obviously, just let us know. And hopefully, we can have you guys on again down the road.
Yeah, would love to keep spreading the word, keep coming through. We
Absolutely.
definitely appreciate the support, and
Yeah, check it
Way
out.
to
Food's
stay.
great. Golf's great. Was here last week.
I've been smelling her wings the entire time.
The dry rub they were phenomenal, and I had flatbread pizza. Very good.
I had the pretzels.
The pretzels
Pretzels were
are
good
very
Yeah.
good.
with
Yeah.
the beer cheese.
Yes.
There we go.
Sucker,
There we
sucker
go.
for pretzels.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for having us. Yeah, this
Absolutely.
is great.